Alright, welcome back to African Air Ordnance. Please like and subscribe. So before we begin, I just want to explain to you guys the differences between the original parts and the upgraded parts. So obviously we want to get more power. So a number of ways we do this. One is to increase the hammer weight. So this is the original hammer and this is the replacement hammer. Okay, it's much heavier than the original. Also has a magnet spring. The only parts also, we've got the transfer port, which is bigger than the original, bigger bore, and then we've got the valves. So the one part that we are going to use off the original is we're going to take off. This is what connects to the power adjusting wheel, and we're going to screw that onto the new valve. So, also one key difference is between these two. In the Sumatra valve, inside here, I shall unscrew for you. There is a massive spring inside, as you can see, like that. Right? So there's this big spring that closes the valve after the valve is fired. On our valve, we don't use a frontal spring, it's actually all internal. So it gets it out of the way, and this just allows better airflow through the valve. It's not getting mixed up with the spring. So it's one of the key differences. And also we have fluting, and this allows a lot more air to enter into the valve. Okay. So what we need to do first is we need to put back the valve and the hammer spring, and this we're going to do, and then before we put the hammer spring in, obviously we want to put in the receiver block. So the first thing we want to do is we just want to put a bit of just silicone grease. We want to just put that on the O-rings. Just want to put it around. It also gives the O-rings a bit of like lubrication when you're sticking it inside, because it is quite difficult. Sometimes it can be quite difficult to put these back, and so it prevents the O-ring snagging on anything on the inside. So we're just going to take our air tube and push this in. Okay. And we're just going to use this. Going to use a screwdriver. Just push it in. Okay. As you can see, it is quite difficult to get it in initially, but what we want to do is now we want to align. This is where the screw holes will go in here, so we want to align these guys. So one way you can do this is to use the old transfer port just to get it in. Okay, so now we know it's aligned perfectly. Alright, now that we've got the valve in, the next thing we want to do is we want to start putting the valve retaining screws back. So the first one we're going to do is a slightly different looking screw from the other three. It's got a narrower head. That goes in first. Okay. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to take the receiver block and we're going to slide that over. But before we do that, I just want to make sure that we got transports aligned with that hole. Sometimes if you don't put it in correctly, it can canter to one side. So the next thing we have to do is we have to slide the receiver block lower on. So now we're just going to put a line out like that. Drop the screw in. Yeah, we're just going to screw it in. These, you don't want to over tighten these now. Just like that. I'm going to flip it over and do it on the other side. go. And then we're going to do the one underneath. Again, it's over tightening. Right. So now we're just going to test this again, make sure everything's lined up. Okay, transfer port goes in nicely. Okay. So the next thing we want to do here is we're going to put the power adjustment wheel back on. Okay, so and she just goes around like that. 2 little screws. This one. Just like that. Again, when you're working with 2 screws like this, always never tighten it full up until both screws are in. Okay. Then we can snug them up. Just put it like that. Okay. So next thing we want to do is we're going to take a bit of silicone oil. I'm just going to spray it in the air tube. Okay. And the next thing we've got to do is now we've got to get in there and we've got to tighten the valve end cap up so it snugs up the O-ring, which would be this O-ring here. It would snug up. When you close it, it squeezes it and pushes it out. So this is the fun part, getting this aligned. Okay, so now we've got a line. We're just going to make a couple of turns and nice and tight. Okay. So now that's the valve and the lower receiver put back on. The next thing we've got to do is we've got to put the hammer and the hammer spring back in position. Okay. So again, make sure this is on fire. Okay. This can be quite hard to do because obviously it's a bit of a heavier duty spring, but what you want to do is you want to take your, just line it up. Okay. And then now that we have that part in, now we're going to just take the, okay, and this we just want to tap this pin in. Okay, now that pin's nicely in place. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put the barrel back into the receiver block, the upper receiver block, and we're going to, basically all you have to do is, first of all, I'm just going to apply a bit of, small amount of silicone grease, take the barrel, slide the barrel back in. I want to line the transfer port up area, and then once it's aligned, we just want to tighten it back in so it can't move. Okay. And then we just want to check that seems to fit. Okay, transfer port. Okay. Alright guys. So that's the barrel back in. So the next thing we want to do now is we want to join the upper and the lower receiver block, or mate them up, I guess the correct term. We just want to move these old parts out the way. Right. We can move on to the next stage. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put our transfer port in. Right, so now that we've got the transfer port in, we want to just take a bit of silicone grease. We want to just lube this O-ring here. Okay. Now we want to make these two receiver halves up. So we're just going to okay, so now that they're mated together, what we're going to do is we're going to start putting the little screws in, okay, that keep these two halves together. Again, we're not going to torque them up until they're all in. Get started. There's one. There's another one. Okay. And then three in, three more to go. This is the most tedious part of doing this. Getting these little screws in. It's a bit of a okay, that's 4 in. And the last one. Okay. So that's all of them in. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to go around and just give them a tart again. One thing I find with air guns is you never have to over torque. Anything. If you over torque, you tend to sin. Just going to slide it in like that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put this pin in again. Just make sure that's fine. We're going to put the pin back in. Can be a bit tricky. It's just a matter of lining it up. And then just give it a forward. Line up. There we go. Okay, so it's back in place. So the next thing we'll do is we want to put the, this attaches the cocking lever to the pellet probe, and also allows the inside there's a little bar that goes in and attaches to the hammer, so it allows the hammer to when you cock the lever, it pulls everything back together, the hammer, the probe. It's a pretty neat little system. So again, not over tightening anything, okay, just like that. Now we can just test it, and we can just decock it. Okay, so that's that done. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to turn this around, and we're going to put on the air tube end cap. Again, I'm just going to spray another bit of silicone spray. I also want to put some silicone grease, just a little bit on the O-ring. Okay. Next thing we're going to do is we're just going to screw this back in. Just by hand. Okay. All the way in. just want it sitting kind of flush with the end of the tube, just like that. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put on this retainer, okay, this plate, and slide it on, just like that, okay. And then we're going to put on the retainer nut. Do it the right way. Okay. Simple as that. Then we're going to put on where your full probe goes. Put that in. Again, I like to just put a bit of lube on all these O-rings. Doesn't hurt. Extends their service life a bit. Okay. Oops. Okay, so it's okay. Use this just to tighten it. Again, you never really want to over tighten anything, I found. Just kind of tight enough. You want to screw the little mini suppressor on. Just make sure it goes in nice and tight. Just like that. Okay, and again we don't want to over tighten it. Okay, and now what we want to do is we want to put this metal plate back on. I called it plastic last time, but it's actually is metal. And this just goes and fits just like that. So now we need a small little finicky little screws. And we're just going to put the second one in. Just make sure that it does go in straight. And there she is, nice and snug. Make sure that's snug. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put the stock back. So to do that, you do want to just cock it. We'll put it on safe. And we're going to slide the cocking handle in. Just like this. Okay, there we go. Just nice and in. I'm going to put the stock retaining screw back in. Okay, let's use the full screwdriver for this. Then we don't want to over tighten this. Make sure everything's nice and snug. Okay, that should do. Going to decock it, just hold it firm. So take it off safety, decock it, okay, close it. And then we're just going to put this little plastic piece back in. Okay. Also we need to eyeball this to make sure it's in the correct place. We're just going to screw that back in. And again, this is a a brass screw going into wood. So again, the idea is to not over tighten it. It's snug enough. Right. So there you guys have the reassembly of the Eagle Claw. This is actually the carbine version, so the full length version is a lot longer. But this is actually a pretty nice little gun. And guys, please like and subscribe. And again, thanks for watching. And have a great day.